Artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping industries, but it also raises complex legal questions, particularly in the realm of copyright law. In the past year, courts, legislators, and regulators have grappled with issues such as whether AI generated content can be copyrighted, whether AI developers are liable for using copyrighted materials to train models, and how existing intellectual property laws should adapt to new technologies. Now, these questions have significant implications for creatives, technology companies, and legal practitioners alike. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Analytics Insight Podcast, where we dive into the forces shaping the future of technology, business, and society. And I'm your host, Priya Dayalani. Now, today we are stepping into a fascinating conversation at the crossroads of AI, decentralization, and of course, innovation, and a conversation that's becoming more critical with each passing day. So let's welcome Phil Mataras, founder of world's first permanent cloud network, AR.io, to give more insights on this crucial issue. Hi Phil, how are you doing?
Hey Priya, I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on a podcast today, and definitely, I think we are going to, gain some interesting insights around the copyright laws, the role of AI, what's the future going to be like. So, before we dive deep into these questions and these issues, we would like to know more about AR.io. So, if you could, help us understand more about your company.
Sure. Yeah. So, RIO or AR.io is what we like to say, the world's first permanent cloud network. And maybe to take a step back from the network that we're building, I'm the founder and CEO of Permanent Data Solutions, which is a company that's building infrastructure for our new web, right? One where data, apps, even identities can live permanently without any kind of centralized control. Right. So we're the team behind RIO, right, which is a decentralized network, or what I like to say a permanent cloud network, as well as an app called R Drive, which is like your Web3 Dropbox-like app that also utilizes the permanent storage technology that we build on top of. And our focus is really building protocols, apps, services that all ensure information stays online, information remains verifiable, and more open, right? Not trapped behind various centralized or corporate platforms. And yeah, we've been, building in the space now for almost 5 years, and really exciting things going on with the most recent launch of our network and how that's helping artificial intelligence use cases and many others, right? As the world is continually innovating, right? We see all kinds of new things popping up for permanent storage and yeah, its benefits. And right, we're really trying to build this new foundation, like I said, for an internet that doesn't forget, because we see lots of problems on the current web with, link rot and deplatforming and, censorship, as well as, just data loss, right? And the fact that now there's so much information getting generated via artificial intelligence and, so much more agentic behavior that's kind of going on the web. We really feel that, building this foundation that starts with something that's, verifiable really will help bring out the best in things like AI versus, maybe take a turn in the other.
Right, definitely. And I think that makes a lot of sense, Phil. And thank you for sharing that insights on AR.io. And definitely, I feel that, you're at the forefront of probably addressing a very crucial challenge that we are facing in today's digital age. And of course, how the future is going to be in terms of, the copyrighted laws and AI, the role of technology, I would say. Moving ahead, we would also like to know more about you, Phil. How has your journey been till date? What exactly is your role and your contribution towards the company? And, or probably what triggered your interest to AR.io?
Yeah, it's definitely been quite the journey, pretty organic journey. In a sense, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. My background has been, was in IT. I had a career as a enterprise architect and team lead, building different systems on-prem, in the cloud, using all kinds of SaaS and IaaS and PaaS. And gosh, I don't even know if those acronyms even ring a bell these days, right? Because this was 5 years ago when I left that job, then started with R Drive. And that's because, I discovered this technology called Arweave, which is what all of our services are built on top of. I kind of discovered that in 2018 while I was, you know, doing my day to day. I saw that Microsoft was doing something with Ethereum, and that was like, oh, Ethereum, what is that? And that was my first intro into blockchain, and decentralized networks in general. And I then discovered this thing called Arweave, which really changed how you could store data. It flipped this model of like renting data storage and paying monthly or whatever to paying one time to store that information indefinitely or forever. And that like immediately struck me and kind of grew on me for a couple years. And then in 2020, coronavirus, the pandemic, really started to change the way the world worked a little bit. And that's what pushed me to, become an entrepreneur and, started with our drive and was, the first builder there, right? I'm very much at my core, I'm a technologist, I'm a builder, right? But as a founder and CEO, I wear many hats, right? Whether it's defining the vision, looking at the design for our protocols, business development. I mean, HR, you name it, right? My background is in IT and I was very much IT focused. And I just had to learn so much about being more of a generalist, right? CEO. But yeah, at the core, I'm a builder, right? And my job is really to protect our mission of, getting permanent storage into the hands of everyone and, kind of steer our long-term architecture. I guess make sure we never lose sight where we started, right? Which is to make permanence and, data sovereignty, I guess, like real for people. So we're kind of less interested in chasing trends maybe and more focused on just building this core infrastructure that will still be standing decades from now.
Great, great. And I think I must say it's a very interesting journey. Your profile seems to be very impressive, Phil. And hopefully in the future, right, we will see more of your innovative contribution towards the company that probably will help AR.io grow, scale, and of course solve more pertinent issues regarding to copyright laws and decentralized solutions. Now, I think it has long been the posture of the US Copyright Office that there is no copyright protection for works created by non-humans, including machines. So, therefore, the product of a generative AI model cannot be copyrighted. The root of this issue lies in the way generative AI systems are trained. Like most other machine learning models, they work by identifying and replicating patterns in data. So, in order to generate an output like a written sentence or a picture, it must first learn from the real work of actual humans. So, as AI generated content, becomes more common, how should copyright laws evolve to protect creators while also fostering innovation?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really big question. And ultimately I'm not a lawyer, right? I can only look at what's happening with AI generated content and see how our technologies can improve upon that. But it does seem like we need a fundamental kind of rethink of how copyright laws work. Right? Because traditional copyright, I don't know when it was invented or when it came into being, but it was certainly not built for a world like today with AI agents or people leveraging AI models to LLMs to generate content based off of other works. Traditional copyright, I guess, is built for a world where human authorship was obvious. And I see like many things happening as it relates to AI, but maybe two big things change first, right? The attribution of that data or that file, that information, whatever, gets really murky. You don't know, if you upload something on the internet today, you don't know, who necessarily created it. There's no cryptographic proof involved that says, this was uploaded at this time, this timestamp with this address by this user, and hey, this information can't ever be forged or changed, right? Like that doesn't exist. So because the attribution on the internet is very hard in general, like that's posing a big problem with AI. And then, the other thing is, the attribution or not the attribution, like the replication of this information. I mean, this has been the case for a while, right? But you can replicate data very fast. on the internet, right? So producing the information is cheap and easy, and you can replicate it very fast, and it's hard to pinpoint who's making it. So I think at its core, we need systems that can prove or have a strong record of data provenance, right? Who created what? When did they create it? What were the inputs that went into it? Right. And then I think that can make for a system that overall has information, has better information to determine what maybe the repercussions or punishments are, instead of just having just systems that like, all right, you infringed, you get punished. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is it's an evolution, right? I think and decentralized storage in general and permanent record keeping could probably help here. I think it could really help, right? Imagine if any piece of data on the internet, but whether AI produced or not, or dealing with AI or not, imagine if every work carried like this unforgeable history of its creation that is totally open and anyone could check and verify and download and so on and so forth. So that combined with now tying, either existing copyright law or new ones, tying that to this information. So that picture, that article, that PDF, that whatever, is inextricably linked to its Creative Commons license, or its, in the case of Arweave and our ecosystem, there's a new license that was created called the Universal Data License, and it's a little specific to information stored on Arweave, and it's something creators could use to further protect their work uploaded, right? And all this stuff I'm talking about, applying attribution and data provenance and adding licenses, it's just as easy to use as the current web today. It's like the creator doesn't and shouldn't have to do anything different other than use the new tools that they have in this world, right? And that's I think the worry for me is that somehow we end up where we can't utilize AI tools because of laws really restricting their functionality. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, for example, like there's a little wave of people using Ghibli filters and ChatGPT. Like, I think that stuff is fun, right? Every person who did that shouldn't get sued for copyright infringement. So I think, hopefully the legal teams that are really looking at copyright laws at a much more detailed level take into account systems like this and their impacts on that information and the law.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I think as generative AI tools like large language models, image generators, and of course, music creators, they're quite surging in popularity. So the question of ownership definitely looms large. So when an AI generates a painting, a song, or even a full-fledged novel, who really owns the rights? Is the creator of the AI model the user who inputted the prompts, or should it belong to no one at all? So I think current copyright frameworks were simply non-designed for non-human creators. I think this gray area is kind of now sparkling a lot of global debates. So it's clear that moving forward, we need legal systems that recognize both the power and limitations of AI-generated works, systems that balance innovation and, of course, protecting genuine human creativity. And I think that brings us naturally to the next evolution, that is decentralized AI. So how can decentralized AI help mitigate concerns around data privacy, bias, and control by big tech companies?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the classic differentiation between centralized and decentralized technology. I guess if it's centralized, it's kind of a single organization. It might still be replicated around the world and just distributed across regions and whatnot, but it's typically a single organization that defines all the rules and the policies and might have shareholders and could act as that single place to restrict a user or make a mistake and delete data or do something in a way that's opposite maybe what their mission might be or whatever core values that the company might post. They might end up doing, things opposite of that. So I kind of see those as maybe the negatives of, centralized models. So now if you apply that to AI, and I guess what's happening now is it's largely controlled already by a handful of centralized players. And I guess, those few players can decide what models are used, what information are they training it on, whose data are they collecting, what biases are reinforced. Those single players, those smaller, or not smaller, but those fewer centralized players can then maybe have bigger impacts on the copyright laws, on the worldview of AI in their systems, because they kind of have all the chips, and that's a concern, right, for me. And you look at, okay, decentralized AI can kind of, it flips that, right? Decentralized systems are by default open and ownerless and more protocol driven and can have aspects of tokenization. And sure, they might not perform in some cases or have some properties of centralized models, but in the case of AI, right, like decentralized AI, enables everyone to be able to use any model for whatever training goals that they have, right? And anyone can own those models. Anyone can audit the models or their inputs or their outputs, right? And come to consensus on what's good, bad, et cetera, right? It just overall brings a lot more transparency to the whole process. Again, whether it's how the models are trained, what models are used, and it lets users verify how the model was built and the outputs, right? So I think in the end, it could maybe help protect data privacy because now users don't have to give their information to someone else. They could do this themselves, right? Like I kind of envision a world ultimately, like when I think of decentralized AI, it's like everyone has their own AI, right? And it's open and verifiable versus you're continually prompting the chat GPT of the world, right? And giving it your photos, whether you're an artist, creator, or just an individual, right? Having fun, right? You're
Yeah.
giving them that information. So yeah, decentralized AI just kind of prevents that more corporate data hoarding.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I agree with you. I think with decentralized AI coming into picture, I think it kind of flips the script. I mean, instead of the power concentrating in the hands of few, it spreads across the many. I mean, it gives individual the opportunity to contribute data, models, and expertise collaboratively. So, of course, decentralized AI is definitely great, good, but it just doesn't stop with AI models. I think it extends into the very fabric of cloud infrastructure itself. Now, while cloud storage is a convenient option for backing up files and accessing them from anywhere, it's risky to rely solely on it. So, I want to understand what is this concept of permanent cloud, and how does it differ from the traditional cloud storage?
yeah, so this is definitely kind of our home turf, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think the big difference between permanent cloud and maybe a traditional cloud or whatever you might want to call it is, traditional clouds rent you access to storage or services at a price at their discretion under their policies, right? And it's generally not self-sovereign and not something you can participate in, right? If you stop paying or if they change the rules, your data, services, apps, front ends, domains, all of any of that, right? So many things are running in the cloud beyond just storing files. That could disappear. So the permanent cloud changes that scenario, just like centralized AI versus decentralized AI, in a sense that in the permanent cloud, there's all kinds of different services that you could leverage, similar to AWS. And the permanent cloud is something that's spread around the world and is in different regions, again, just like AWS, but it's not owned by a single company. It's subject. It's the data is spread around the world, and it's all open and verifiable. Right, coming back to some of those points about AI. You store something in AWS, for example, that's all siloed behind their walled garden, so to speak. It's not open and verifiable. So the permanent cloud really changes that. And this storage model of paying once, storing data forever, is a more kind of premium storage model in the short term, in a sense that it's more costly compared to temporary storage, but in the long run, it is cheaper, right? And it just fundamentally kind of changes the power dynamic. Giving giving control back to individuals, whether small at home people, developers, community builders, to companies who want to run their own portion of this permanent cloud in their own data centers, or hey, even in AWS, right? We built it to not replace the traditional cloud, but to work alongside it, right? We don't see this big shift happening overnight to these new kinds of platforms. So we felt that it's important to build something that complements the current cloud and internet, not just overwrites it. So yeah, maybe that's how it's a little different than the traditional cloud and traditional cloud storage models.
I think this is pretty revolutionary. I think for creators, developers, and enterprises who need guaranteed access to critical data over decades, and not just subscription cycles. But something that I've been hearing about it lately, or probably there's a hype about it. I don't know. We are talking more about token utility. So I've heard that token utility kind of helps decentralized AI or cloud or permanent data actually work in a very sustainable and incentivized way. So how do you think that these utility tokens add value to decentralized AI and cloud ecosystems?
So these kinds of decentralized systems, they need, because there's no central owners, they need stronger coordination that is run by protocols. And sure, there's DAOs, and maybe we'll get back into that. But these decentralized systems or DePIN networks, permanent clouds, need coordination. And when it comes to the incentives and economics around that, utility tokens have generally been the coordination mechanism. So without that, you could potentially end up with, a decentralized network that is free and unmaintainable, right? Because, and we've seen this happen a lot. And this happens in traditional web too, right? Like free things. Generally, if something is free, it's much harder to keep that operational in the long run. It can be abused. Generally, you need to find other ways to monetize it, and that's where you end up with systems that are free, where like the user is the product, so to speak. So something like a token can add network revenue and incentives, and again, without that, you run this risk of the network, or what have you, just being captured and centralized again, right? The team that kind of has the most fundraising, that comes up with like the best business model to earn money off of the protocol, will probably end up winning in the long run. So that's why, yeah, generally utility tokens fit that, or solve that need, provide the economic alignment, right, for the participants, whether they're running a gateway or whether you're hosting a model or training AI or indexing the data. You can earn tokens for providing those services. Users can, on the flip side, right, pay the tokens to access those services. Like, for example, in the RIO network, to purchase a domain name, which it could be permanent and replicated around the world and not dependent on a single provider, you would pay with the RIO token to purchase that, right? So you figure in these networks, the better the service, maybe the more work involved, the more rewards the operators get or the participants get. The worse the service, the more economic penalty. Another big value I think we see in tokens is you can also have like this decentralized funding model, right? We see networks that emit tokens over a period of time, or you can stake to join the network, and then tokens are emitted as rewards to those stakers. In our case, we're also using the token now for a grants program to help fund new innovations and new applications and things built in our ecosystem, without needing venture capital, or other kind of subsidies coming in. And maybe, I don't know, the last piece to mention, and this is something where my opinion is more protocol driven governance versus human DAO driven governance. But tokens can sometimes maybe confer rights to vote on things relating to a network, right? Maybe you need tokens to propose or signal a vote on an upgrade or a config or funding something. Tokens can also maybe help prevent some of that centralized governance over time. So yeah, it's not just about them being money. They're kind of like really this fuel that powers many of the decentralized economies like the RIO network.
Definitely. I mean, that's pretty interesting. And, to wrap up, I think AI copyright debates are forcing us to rethink creative ownership, and decentralized AI and, decentralized clouds are pushing us towards a more democratic and secure digital ecosystems. Whereas we spoke about permanent cloud, it's safeguarding our future access to critical data. And of course, when talking about token utilities, they are providing the economic backbone needed to make all this work sustainably. So definitely, it's an exciting future, but also a challenging one. And if you build it thoughtfully, it could be a future that's more open, more inclusive, and more empowering for everyone. Thank you so much, Will. By help us understand the conversions of AI, decentralization, and how token economics could redefine the very infrastructure of our digital lives. Because I think we are on the brink of a world where creative ownership is transparent, where individuals, not corporations, control their data, and where collaboration outpaces competition. So thank you so much for your time and effort, Phil. It was a pleasure having you with us on our podcast today.
Likewise, Priya. Enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much. So, this is for our listeners. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. And if you found today's discussion thought provoking, make sure to leave a review and share it within your network. Until next time, keep questioning, keep building, and keep pushing the frontiers of innovation. You can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.